As you see, I brought my work boots. What I want to convey to you today is that you don't need to wear steel-toed boots when you come to church. Okay? And I'm not saying steel-toed boots as in you come in the door and physically wearing those boots, but sometimes we spiritually wear steel-toe boots. And we do this so that we don't get our toes stepped on. That the pastor has said something that we don't like, and he constantly says it. And so instead of changing where our foot is, we just build up a steel-toe boot so that we don't have to deal with it. We don't need to wear these boots. We need to allow God's Word to change us. We don't need to attend the same church for year after year after year, especially Lighthouse with the preaching that comes out of this pulpit. We cannot sit here and not let it change us. If you are not a different person today than you were when you first started attending this church, it's not because the preaching's not good. It's probably because you've been wearing these, and whenever something is said that should have nudged you to do a change in your life, you didn't feel it. I wear these boots at night, and these are my boots, and they are worn out. But these are steel-toe boots. If I take this hammer, and that's what the hammer's brought for, so you don't have to worry about falling asleep, and I hit on this boot, it doesn't matter. You might feel the vibration, but you're not going to feel the pain of if I were to actually take your foot with a normal shoe and slam this hammer on it. But these things are used to protect your toes. And a lot of times, I'll be at work, and I work, like Miss Kathy said, I work at UPS. And I will purposely drop something on my foot to save my back. I work, and there's a conveyor that comes across, and I will pull package off the belt and let it slide to my foot and let it go into this little chute that's underneath me. Now, occasionally, a 70-pound box will come, and I've been in this routine of dropping these small ones, and I'll drop that 70-pound box and do the same thing, and it'll hit the wrong area on the steel-toe boot, and it will hurt. So let me tell you, even if you come to church wearing your steel-toe boots, and the message is beating on your foot that you need to make a change, and you just keep on putting up this wall, so to speak, that I'm not going to change, eventually God's going to send a 70-pound box. Okay? And it's going to hurt a lot more than the little nudges that if you would have listened to. And let me tell you, when those 70-pound boxes come and they fall on my foot, and I've been used to just doing this, I feel it. And I don't just feel it in the toe. It's usually right there on the top of the foot. Okay? But that is the same way with God dealing with us. That sometimes we take little things that God is trying to teach us and to tell us, the little things, and we choose not to make the change. And it usually ends up escalating into something big in our life where God says, all right, that's it. I want you to do this now. And we could have bypassed a whole lot of trouble if we'd have just listened to the little nudges. Just the little nudges. So I encourage you, when you come to church, come barefoot. Okay? Spiritually. With your toes out, ready to get stepped on. Okay? Because doing that, spiritually barefoot, and willing to make a change in your life, will allow you to make a difference for God's kingdom. And you'll bypass a lot of trouble of God trying to get your attention. Okay? So what we're going to talk about tonight is basically our hardened heart, so to speak. Now, there was a man in the Bible. His name is Pharaoh. He is well known for having the hardened heart. Chapter after chapter after chapter of the Bible talks about Pharaoh's hardened heart. It is the entire story of the children of Israel leaving Egypt. Everything that happened to the Egyptians is followed by Pharaoh hardened his heart. We can read in the story is, we're not going to read the entire story, but the story is found in Exodus chapters 7 through 14. And I'm just going to read a few verses. You don't have to flip around with me. I'm just going to read them really quickly of a lot of verses about Pharaoh's hardened heart. Exodus 7:13 says, "And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said." Exodus 7:22, "And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Lord had said." Exodus 8:15, "And when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said." Exodus 8:19, "Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, This is the finger of God, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said." Exodus 8:32, "And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go." And in Exodus 9:7, "And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go." And Exodus 9:12, "And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses." Exodus 9:34 through 35, "And when Pharaoh saw the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses." Exodus 10:20, "But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go." You can see time, and there's more passages and more passages that repeat the same thing. Now, why is Pharaoh continuing to harden his heart to the things of God? Because if you look at all the things that happened to Pharaoh, you would not be wise at all to look at the plague after plague after plague. And think, me personally, the first one, if I saw the staff fall and it turned into a snake and it ate the other snakes, I'd be like, all right, this is God. Okay? I mean, I don't like snakes. And that one right there would have done it for me. Okay? But right after then, Pharaoh hardened his heart. Then we go on to the river turning into blood. And I think everybody would have been like, that's God. And I joke with my students this morning that this is the first time that Kool-Aid is used in the Bible. Because the magicians then come and they put something in the water, Kool-Aid, okay? Like I said, it's the first time Kool-Aid's mentioned in the Bible, and turn water into blood themselves. Or it wasn't blood, it was some sort of colored water. But because his magicians, his magical men, were able to do the same thing, Pharaoh hardened his heart again. And then we have the frogs. And Pharaoh hardens his heart after the frogs. Now, there starts to be a change in Pharaoh and what happens and how the reasons he hardens his heart. First of all, the first two things that happen, the staff turning into the snake and the river turning into blood, Pharaoh hardened his heart because his magicians supposedly did the same thing that Moses did. And so he hardened his heart thinking, well, this really isn't God because I have magicians that do this. And so he hardened his heart. But then as the plagues become more complex and become things that no magician can do, he still hardens his heart. And some of these, he hardens his heart because the punishment has been lifted. We find that the frogs come, and when the frogs come, he calls Moses and said, these frogs are everywhere. Please get the frogs out of Egypt. Okay, and if you do that, I will let your people go. And so the frogs are gone, and then he hardens his heart. It's like the punishment is lifted. Now I don't have to worry about letting the people go. So that's a different type of hardening your heart because the punishment is lifted. Then we have the lice. And what's interesting about the lice is the people around Pharaoh start to notice that these things that are happening are of God. Because when we find about the lice, it says in Exodus chapter 8, verses 18 through 19, it says, and the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice upon man and upon beast. Then the magician said unto Pharaoh, This is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. So even the people around Pharaoh start to notice that these aren't things that man can do, that there must be a God that is doing this. But he hardened his heart and did not listen to his own magicians. After the lice, we have the cattle that fall over dead. We have the boils. We have the hail, the locusts, the darkness, the killing of the firstborn. After all of these things, Pharaoh still hardened your heart. The verses that I read, all of those verses follow a particular plague. All of them. Pharaoh hardened his heart and did not hearken unto the Lord. And so we kind of look at him, and especially after the killing of the firstborn, that human life has been taken. But yet he lets the people go. But as the people have gone, the children of Israel have left, then he hardens his heart again and pursues after the children of Israel. That this is leading this man and his soldiers to their grave. This hardened heart, that it blinded them. And he's pursuing after his slaves that he just set free. And when he gets to them, he doesn't even notice that there's still miraculous things going on because of his hardened heart. That the pillar of the cloud was in front of them, that it spun behind them to protect them as they crossed through the Red Sea. That just miraculously the water split and we had dry ground. All of these things that a normal person would look and see that we're not dealing with ordinary men here. We're dealing with the God of the universe. That we aren't going to be able to battle this people. They were blinded by their hardened hearts. And the Bible talks about people that harden their heart, that don't want to listen to what the Bible has to say, that does not want to adhere to correction. Proverbs talks about it many times. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 3, it says this, The foolishness of man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against the Lord. The foolishness of man. The foolishness. So the word that the Bible has for someone that does not heed to the correction of the Bible, that does not heed to what the Bible says, that does not heed to what God has told you, is fool. You are a fool. And so if you look at Pharaoh, he is the biggest fool there is. Because how many times did he get a warning? How many plagues did he harden his heart for? How many times? At least 10 times. 10 plagues at least. He hardened his heart. And so we can consider Pharaoh to be the biggest fool because he would not adhere to what he was seeing. He kept hardening his heart. The foolishness of man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against the Lord. A lot of times when we do things wrong, or when we know, because sometimes it's not, especially as we get older, we still sin. We will always sin. But sometimes as we get older, it's about what God's will is for our life. Something that He might be telling us to do rather than to not to do. And we tend to, when we know we're not doing what we're supposed to do, it says, and he fretteth against the Lord.